Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good day to everyone. We're going to say some things today. I call this particular class the Night of Cosmic Power Preview. The Night of Cosmic Power Preview. So saddle in for that one. We're going to have a very good time exploring the information related to what's called Laylatul Qadr. And hopefully all of you by now have purchased the book called The Night of Cosmic Power. It looks like that. So look through your books, look at your bookshelf, look at your library, and you should have this book on your shelf. It's a one of a kind. It's now available on Amazon, I believe, alongside Nunetics. But if you want the full notebook size version, you have to get that one from me. All right. You can get the paperback version. It's a smaller size and a smaller print. You can get that from Amazon. So in case you're not familiar with me and you were just told to show up, I am your instructor, Benjamin Bilal, broadcasting from Raleigh, North Kakalaki. And we're going to go into some things today that I think you're going to appreciate in terms of Quranic language. And I'm going to begin after opening up officially with some words from Imam Warathuddin Muhammad. So we begin officially with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and that is with Allah's signature, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. And we like to say that Bismillah means not only with Allah's name, but we all know that we can use our names as our signatures. And when we do so, it means that we are actually involved in something official. You know, we can call people names, and that's not a good thing if it's a bad spirit that you're doing it in and you're calling me out of my name. You know, it's a lot of ways that we can look at the word name. But when we're using our names to sign off on something, to put our signature on something, then it becomes very official. So I like to say that Allah is doing the same thing when he says Bismillah, that we are to begin with his name. I believe that that means we're to begin with his signature. And that makes it official, meaning the relationship between ourselves and our source creator. It's an official relationship. You see, it's not something that's happenstance or just circumstantial or accidental or anything like that. It's official. Allah intended for us to be here. Each and every one of us as individuals represent one out of what was possibly, I don't know how many thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe a few million spermatozoa heading towards one ovum. And out of all of those sperms making that journey and swimming and dodging, and, you know, all of that, only one made it. Unless you're a twin, you know, even if you're a twin, one made it and split, you know. But if you're one of those twins who you need two sperm in order to fertilize the egg, then you're one of a kind. I mean, yeah, one of a kind. But we're talking about the average one of us who took one sperm, one egg, and Allah chose you. You didn't choose yourself. Allah chose you, and guess what else he chose? We have to say this now. He chose your gender also. Okay. You shouldn't be around here guessing about whether you're a boy or a girl. I mean, I'm talking way outside of here. I'm talking to YouTube land, right? You shouldn't be guessing about whether you're a boy or a girl, or whether you should stay a boy or a girl. Allah created you, male and female. Min nafsin wahida, from one essential substance, from one essential soul. He put in that soul for the possibilities of us becoming either male or female. And that's a beautiful thing. And we shouldn't be confused about that. And, you know, have all kinds of dysphoria, whatever the word they're using. We shouldn't be confused about that. Because if we let them get away with that, and this is just an aside note, if we let them get away with that, they'll come up with an idea and start pushing it amongst our children that they really should not have been born human. They really were intended to be, you know, a giraffe or, you know, a hippopotamus. I mean, they could say anything behind that kind of crazy logic that whatever I feel like I am is what I am. No, what Allah created you to be is where your greatest possibilities lie. So you need to embrace what it is Allah created you, because he gave you a human package that needs to be exploited in the greatest sense of that word. And most of us we'll become dissatisfied with this human package because we don't know what's in the package. We're mistaking the outside of the package for what the worth of the thing is inside the package. So we look at this flesh and they tell us that this flesh is evil and this flesh is sinful. You see, we're judging the package. That's why we want to get out of this package. We want to get rid of this package. It's ugly. They said black is ugly and dark is ugly and all of this crazy kinds of stuff and information is coming into our ears and the ears of our children and our children's children now. And we're judging the book, as they say, by its cover, not even knowing that the cover is magnificent, but we can't recognize it because we're leaving other people to interpret what this cover is, what this flesh is. Whereas in the Quran, Allah tells us that we were created in the most excellent organizational design. See, Allah could have put your eyes on the end of your elbow if he wanted to. Imagine walking around like that all day long trying to see your way. Yeah, he took fish and he put their eyes on the sides of their heads. Imagine what kind of vision that is. He could have done that to you, human, but he didn't. He gave you two eyes focused forward. He gave you two eyes that focus into one vision. Two eyes, one vision. He could have put those eyes on the back of your head so that all you saw was what you just left behind. He didn't do that, nor did he put any eyes on the back of your head because Allah intends for us to keep looking forward. That's called optimism. Keep looking forward. You can peek back there, but if you keep walking forward with your eyes looking that way, you're going to eventually run into something. These are signs that Allah created. So Allah has signs throughout nature. And it's those signs that represent his signature. You see the word sign in signature, S-I-G-N, nature. These are his signs in nature. You're supposed to be reading these signs, especially when you're trying to go a distance and it's far away from where you actually live, far away from the things that you normally recognize as your environment. Well, that's the time when it's appropriate to keep reading the signs. You should read every sign that you pass when you're on a long journey and you really don't know where you're going. So you set your GPS for a particular destination, and it's going to tell you, make a right at the light, stop, make a left here, do this, do that, watch out for the construction. It's going to tell you all of that kind of stuff. And that's what we should be looking for in Allah's signature, because Allah is the best qualified to get us safely to the destination. And the destination should be, whether we say we're Muslims, Christians, Jew, or whatever, the destination should be a good life. We call it paradise. In this life and after we leave this physical life. So appreciate this excellent body that Allah gave you. Appreciate this excellent soul that Allah clocked into this biology. Appreciate this excellent emotionality that can feel bad, but was engineered by Allah to feel mostly good. This spirit, it can feel down, but it was engineered to mostly feel up, vibrant, alive, this spirit. You have a default setting that Allah clocked into your human nature. And the default setting can be readily observable simply by studying the average infant. See, there's no need to guess. There's no need for Sigmund the fraud to come and explain you to you. Allah explains you to you. Just study how you got here. You got here as an innocent child, born into a world of possibilities. And the child is so excited about being here. You see the child just smiling with the gums and just don't know nothing, can't speak back to you, can only get back to you. It hears you, but it can't respond because Allah made the job of that infant to just absorb. You see that? Just absorb information. That's all you're supposed to be doing is absorbing information, tape recording nature and all of its possibilities. And it makes the child smile. Now, if something happens to interfere with the safety or the warmth or the hunger, all of that, when things happen to interfere with how it feels it should feel, then it's going to protest temporarily until you resolve its issue. Once that issue is resolved, people, you know the deal. You've had children, you've been one yourself. Once you get that lollipop or that ice cream cone or that whatever you're looking for and hollering about, once you get it and you're satisfied, you go back to your normal, happy, playful self. And you're not supposed to lose that playfulness. You're not supposed to lose that joy. You're not supposed to lose that sense of wonder as you walk around and look at the trees and the bugs and the bees and the birds and all of that is supposed to be absorbed by your human intellect. And you're supposed to feel an appreciation for what Allah has placed you in the midst of, because he has placed you, as both scriptures say, Bible and the Quran, he's placed you in the midst of the garden. Look around. I don't care if you live in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, West Side Chicago. You have still been placed in the garden. It's just that Satan has built his kingdom around it. So you now have to develop the skills to be able to penetrate, to pierce through Satan's imaginations. That's what this world is. It's his imagination. You have to be able to pierce through that imagination. And when you see that beam of light to come through, after you've pierced through Satan's imagination, that beam of light, if you follow it, it's going to lead you straight to the destination that Allah intended for you. So we're living in a wonderful world. As Sam Cooke tried to tell you, what a wonderful world this could be. Could be. It actually is. You just have to follow the signatures of Allah. Now, let's say these few words from Imam W.D. Muhammad. And again, you'll find this written in my book, The Night of Cosmic Power. And the book that I'm about to come out with in about another week to 2 weeks, inshallah, is the volume 2 book on the true meaning of the Salat. Those of you who have volume number 1, I know you're just as excited as I am to begin reading and possessing volume number 2. And it's also going to have a balance of information on what the Salat truly is according to the Quran. And it's going to give you many, many more ayat or verses from the Quran to substantiate the position that we've taken. But it's also going to be almost a part 2 of this book called the Night of Cosmic Power. It's almost going to be a book 2. There's so much that I didn't get a chance to cover about the Night of Power and about Ramadan that I decided to combine the idea of the true meaning of the Salat along with meanings concerning the word of Ramadan and the Night of Power. So be prepared for that. So this is under the heading, The Struggle for Perception. The well-known Muslim American scholar Imam W.D. Muhammad stated that the Night of Power is the, quote, struggle in the intellect for perception, end quote. Now, if I didn't say anything else, you should start scratching the top of your head right now behind that statement. Imam Muhammad said that the Night of Power that the Quran is discussing is the struggle in the intellect for perception. Imam Muhammad asked us to be aware that there is nothing, that's his emphasis, nothing explicitly stated in this surah to indicate that the Night of Power is speaking to the physical night in which the Quran was initiated as revelation upon the heart of Muhammad. My, oh my. I think I ought to repeat that for some of you. Imam Muhammad stated that there is nothing stated explicitly in the Quran to suggest that the Night of Power is speaking to a physical night. They say look out for it on the 27th on an odd night. It might be the 29th. It might be the 25th. They said it fell out of Muhammad's head. With all of the other things he had to remember, the whole of the Quran, this one thing just happened to get away from him, right? Yeah, okay. He said, all I know is that it was on an odd night. Yeah, it was an odd night, all right. And it was an odd night, but it wasn't necessarily the 27th night or the 25th night or the 29th night. That kind of odd. Now, if you understand odd to mean add, then you're right. Add means to put some more on it. And that's exactly what the Night of Power is. That's why it's called power. So let's continue. Imam Muhammad postulated that this surah could be discussing the, quote, beginnings of creation itself, end quote. You tell me this man shouldn't be up there with Albert Einstein, with Tesla, Nikola Tesla. A statement like that from somebody who looks like you when you look at yourself in the mirror every morning, that's why you can't believe it. That's why you don't readily accept it when you hear it. If Tesla had said this, you'd be all in it. If Albert Einstein had said this in a book or in a video, you'd be all with it. You wouldn't even have any questions. You say, give me more of that. How do I explain that to my children? E equals MC squared. That's the guy who said that. So I'm definitely going to accept this. Well, I'm giving you something from a man who said man means mind and words make people. That's just as profound as E. In fact, you have to have that other stuff explained to you. E, what is E? Equals MC? Who is that? Hammer? I mean, who is it? What MC is this he's talking about? But a person that says that man means this and not this, you need to listen to him. Because we haven't been taught what this is. And that was my point at the opening up of this class this morning. We have not been sufficiently educated in what the mind actually is and the potential within this mind created by a source creator. So we're so busy thinking that we are just this flesh and blood, and then we're given the most negative information about this flesh and blood. So that when it catches some strange disease from being with some strange person who they should not have been with, that's when we begin to really, really believe that this flesh is sin. This is the devil's camp. This is where the devil hangs out in these feelings I have, these urges that I have. That's why I'm overweight. That's why I'm oversexed. That's why I'm over whatever. I drink too much. I smoke too much because this flesh is making me do that. No, it's your mind that's making you do that. So you have to make the necessary corrections in the mental department. Man means mind. So the man who introduced us to that phrase, I repeat, was Imam W.D. Muhammad back in 1975. So listen to what he's saying now to you as I'm reading it to you in 2023. It is just as, if not more significant. He said about the night of power that Laylatul Qadr, the night of power, could possibly be discussing the beginnings of creation itself. My thoughts are, with that in mind, we might surmise that this surah is referencing what modern science is currently calling the Big Bang Theory. Imam Muhammad further stated that the next ayah, which is verse 2 of that surah, indicates that the subject of being introduced by God has not been known up until this point. Listen to this second verse. It says, what will make you know what is the night of power? The night of power is greater than 1,000 months. Listen to what's being said. What will make you know what is the night of power? So you expect to know in the next breath what the night of power actually is. You're expecting an answer to that question, but look at how Allah answers it. The night of power is greater than 1,000 months. The Imam went on to elucidate by saying that this is not telling us what the night of power is. It is a qualitative statement describing the night of power's value. It's greater than. In other words, this night of power is of tremendous worth. Now, in electricity, when we plug it in, socket into the wall, and we're able to connect with electricity, that electricity is called power. If the light bulb doesn't turn on when you click the light switch, we say there must be something wrong with the electricity. Is the electric bill paid? Is the plug all of the way into the wall? Because I'm not getting any what? Power. So we're talking about power today. This is just your preview. Don't get too comfortable. This is just the beginning of it. We're going to continue this conversation throughout the rest of this month. So electricity is called power, and electricity is responsible for light. Please pay attention. And that light is a part of the electromagnetic spectrum, not darkness per se. When you connect with electricity, even in the form of a lightning bolt, is going to produce not darkness, light. So although Allah is calling it a night of power, Laylatul Qadr, the Laylat part is not night like you're thinking about night. And I'm sure that this is why Imam Muhammad said it's not talking about a physical night. A physical night is called Layl. L-A-Y-L. That's it, Layl. And it's masculine. The word that Allah is using is Laylat, with a feminine T on the end of it. And it is a feminine principle. This night is feminine. The masculine word for night, Layl, is masculine, and that night impregnates. But the Laylat that Allah is discussing is feminine, and it becomes impregnated. With what, instructor? Al-Quran. Are you listening? Al-Quran came in that night and impregnated that night. And all of these wonderful possibilities for human life, growth, development, and evolution were born out of that night. Oh my goodness. Yes, indeed. Could possibly be discussing the beginnings of creation itself. What creation, instructor? The creation of your human mind, the creation of your human soul, your nafs. And it doesn't happen on one particular layl, because it's not talking about an individual night, as you know, night. 6 to 12 hours of darkness and that kind of stuff. No, talking about a different kind of darkness that doesn't register as the absence of light. It's talking about a darkness that itself represents light. Let's go on to prove it through nunetics and consonantal connections. Y'all ready for this ride? All right.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, I know you are. Thank you for that phone call. I wouldn't be here right now. All right. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this now. Electricity, responsible for light, not darkness per se. The night of power, therefore, is a night of tremendous illumination, not darkness. The night of power, that's why I call it cosmic power. The night of power is a night of tremendous illumination. The ultimate objective is to reach enlightenment. However, one must first become illumined. You can't reach enlightenment before reaching illumination. Write that down. The objective, I repeat, enlightenment. The process, you have to go through the door of illumination. Not Illuminati. That's false light. That's the devil's light. We're talking about Fitra's light, nature's light, which is illumination, which leads to enlightenment. the intellect becomes illumined. What's happening in the register of this pineal gland that you probably don't know anything about if you haven't been listening to me or anybody in this class, you're not listening to these folks bring it to you, then you don't know anything about the pineal gland. The pineal gland represents your enlightenment. So there is your illumination in the intellect, and then there is the enlightenment, the spark of genius, actually, that is housed within the contents of this small pea-sized organ sitting straight in the middle of your brain called pineal gland. Pineal. I'm making you write stuff down today. I didn't come prepared with my notes, so you just have to follow best you can or wait until YouTube and press replay. So once again, illumination comes before enlightenment. And the Night of Power is discussing the possibilities for illumination, with the objective being to eventually reach enlightenment. All right, I think you got this. So illumination is the precursor to enlightenment. Things which illuminate light up the darkness, such as lightning and stars. Those are considered to be illuminating bodies, lightning, stars. When operating in the minds of humans, illumination should naturally lead one towards enlightenment. Enlightenment is born out of an initial state of illumination, but can carry with it several negative connotations due to the fact that one can be intellectually enlightened without having become internally illuminated. Oh my goodness. I believe I need to moonwalk for about 5-10 seconds and repeat that. Let me go back. Hold on. Enlightenment, the ultimate, is born out of an initial state of illumination, but can carry with it several negative connotations due to the fact that one can become intellectually enlightened. See, that's where the enlightenment begins in the intellect, but it kind of fizzles out right there. It fizzles out right there. So that can happen without first becoming internally illuminated. So we call these people bookworms. We call these people mad scientists sometimes, like what produced this whole lockdown situation. Those were scientists in the laboratory somewhere in Wuhan or Johan or Mahan or wherever they were at. They were somewhere in a laboratory bypassing the initial illumination, because the initial illumination would have shown them that they should be making moral and rational decisions in the intellect. And as soon as they saw that something could possibly cause the death of thousands and possibly millions and maybe the entire world of people, they should have backed up off that. Somebody should have blew the whistle, and many people did. But people in positions of fake power, not this power, not other, these other people are in positions of false light and false power. They decided to keep it rolling. Let's see how much we can milk out of this financially and politically. So they bypassed the initial illumination that the intellect was knocking on the door, trying to introduce to them. And they went for the false enlightenment. And the Bible calls it false light. The Bible calls that light Lucifer. You see, lucid in Lucifer, that's that false enlightenment. The Quran calls it Iblis, who said, you created me min nar, you created me from fire. You see that fire, that's local. And that fire will drive you loco if you're not careful. You have to want to be close to that fire in order to benefit from it. The fire that Iblis is made of, that's not like the sun. The sun illuminates the entire spectrum of whatever it touches. But that's not what a match does when you light it. A match, you have to be right up on it. If you're looking for some heat, especially, man, you got to be right up on that little fire you just kindle. And if you want the light, you see there's a circle of light, like an aura of light around a match or a little fire that you made in the fireplace. So it's a local light. There ain't no big brag that Iblis said you created me from fire, like that was a big thing. Yeah, ain't no big thing. Storm wind come and blow you out. Cover you up with some glass bowl and deprive you of your oxygen, and you go out. And that's exactly why Iblis didn't include oxygen in the description of his self. He said, you created me from fire. But what keeps fire going? Oxygen. Well, how come Iblis didn't say you created me from fire and air? He busy telling you what Adam was created from. He created him min thing. But he didn't even give you the other part of his development. Adam was created from clay and water. He created from wet clay. That's what thing is. You have dry clay that doesn't have any more moisture, but it gets stuck in its mold. You can't do anything with it from there except break it if you want it to look different than that. But if you want something to look different and you're working with moist clay, you can create a bust of a head or face over there. And you say, well, I want the nose to be bigger, like my African brothers and wherever. You can take the thin aquiline features off and put a fatter nose if the clay is still shapeable, if it's still malleable, and it can only be malleable if it's moist. See? But Iblis didn't want you dealing with the moisture content in human nature, because that would have made you human. That would have made you humus man, humus mind. Humus means moist. It's the moisture in the soil that makes the plants grow, because the seeds respond to the moisture, to the rain. He didn't want you to know that. He just wanted you to think that you were earth, shapeable earth. But he didn't tell you what was causing the shaping process. It was moisture. Human beings need water. Water represents your emotional nature. Water also represents the moral mind that makes choices that are designed to keep the human being's life clean and productive, just like water does. It might be too early for some of you. This kind of deep into the ocean kind of swim that I'm taking you on. I don't know, it might be too early for some of you, but not for most of you. I know you.
It's perfect.
All right. All right. We got a nice little lineup here coming into the class. This is great. Okay. Now, we don't want the false enlightenment. We want the true enlightenment. And the true enlightenment of that pineal gland and its possibilities begin with your effort to attain illumination. Illumination. Now, illumination establishes a moral level which naturally recognizes the need for decent behavior, the outgrowth of which is social civility. So this is how you know groups of people who have come into illumination. Native Americans, people from other ethnic backgrounds, many of the people in parts of India, many other parts of Africa, they have come into illumination in their local precincts, in their local vicinities and communities. They have come into their own personal levels of illumination because of their value system, because of the things that they hold dear, because of their reverencing of the wombs that bore them. And they continue to recognize and respect family life, beginning with their parents that gave them birth, particularly the mother. When you have that level of respect coming out of the gate, and then you learn to extend that concern for not only other human beings who you might not know by name, But that tribe then begins to reach out to other tribes that they're not familiar with, and they form a community of tribes, a confederation. This is what happened amongst the so-called Native Americans. They formed a confederation. All over this country, they had confederations of Native Americans. The Cherokee Nation. See, they went from being tribes to becoming nations. Quran tells you that we have not created you as nations and tribes so that you might be at each other's throats. We created you as nations and tribes, lita'arafu, so that you might recognize, respect, and have curiosities concerning each other. Arafa, lita'arafu. Arafa means to recognize things just on the surface. See, when you look at somebody on the surface and you watch them for about 3 to 5 minutes as they are actually engaged in something or engaged with somebody in conversation or some activity, you can actually tell within 5 minutes whether that person is a decent person, an honorable person, or a mischievous person, just by watching them. If you're truly watching their behavior, listening to their words, it doesn't take you more than 5 minutes. That's how merciful Allah is in spreading out his signatures. Once you know what Allah's signs in nature are, you know what Allah's signatures are, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, those signatures, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, then you look for those qualities in life. You look for those qualities in nature, and particularly in people that you come across. And when you don't see any beneficence, everything is gimme, gimme, gimme. Yo, Mac, psst, psst, I got something for you. And he opened up his trench coat. He got everything that he stole from Walmart underneath that trench coat. You know that in 5 minutes because they got to hurry up and offload that stuff. They're not going to sit and have an hour's worth of a conversation with you before they try to offload these stolen goods. So again, criminality and that level of depravity, you're going to know that before 5 minutes is up. Just keep listening. The person's going to slip. You're going to be looking at your daughter a certain way. And if you look at your daughter more than 30 straight seconds, watch out. And the other one, he's looking at your wife for 2 straight minutes without blinking while he's trying to talk to her. Yeah, well, my daughter, I think she goes to your school. Yeah, he's just looking at you trying to hypnotize your wife. Watch out. It only takes about 2 minutes for you to peep it. So these are not hidden secrets in the way Allah created people. He gave you a default system, and the human default system is decency, just like the infant, as I mentioned earlier. Joy. You see somebody trying to steal your joy by backbiting somebody before you can even say, hey, how are you? They telling you about something crazy somebody else did, or something crazy that they did to somebody else. Watch out for those people. They're right there in your church. And they're right there in your masjid. I heard some knucklehead imam recently. He called me. Now, I'm not going to say he called me. I didn't hear any name attached to it, but he said some brother in New York started a cult. He said he's a leader of a cult. So really, these people really know how to do some research. If they were researching, if they were talking about me, I don't know. They would have known that I've been out of New York for 8 years now. But they still think I'm in New York. That's a hell of a researcher right there. Whoever did that research, right on to you. Hope you don't have to find any lost people anytime in the near future. But in any case, these are knuckleheaded people who think they know what they don't know. And if they would just be humble enough to say, I don't know, and I heard some things that I didn't know that benefited me. I heard that there were some people benefiting from this new information that this imam guy, this instructor guy has been sharing with the population freely. Yeah, I think people are benefiting from that. I saw him online with several children, 11 years old, 12 years old, 9 years old, 8 years old. And these children are becoming illumined. You see what I mean by that night of power? This is how it starts. That's why it's no particular night, as Imam Muhammad was trying to tell us. Let's continue. So look for people who are socially civilized. That's the beginning of illumination amongst individuals and people. How do you treat yourself first? then how does that treatment extend when dealing with other people? Watch the people in their home first. If you're invited to somebody's house, watch how they treat their spouses. Watch how they treat their siblings. Watch how they interact with their children. If they interact in any other way that suggests blatant, unnecessary, and uncalled for disrespect for the people in their homes, don't marry that nigga. Talking to the women now. Don't marry that guy. If he's like that with his family and he's treating you all lovey-dovey and special, it's just a matter of time before he disrespects you and possibly ruins your life. That's a commercial for our relationship counseling session that we'll be doing after Ramadan. If you have issues like that, make sure you stay in touch with us. Yeah, look for the one who's treating his spouse right. You know, go out to the restaurant or whatever, and, you know, he wants to sit next to her, you know, that kind of thing, you know, not sitting all 5 people down at the table. You understand what I'm saying? This qadr is powerful. Listen carefully. I'm going to show you very quickly some consonantal connections in the word qadr, and I will use my notepad for this purpose, so stand by. And I think we do have a couple of extended minutes today. I don't see anybody coming behind me until 12. And I'm sure the engineer will holler at me in a good way, of course. Good brother. If I'm going over and someone needs to get in, but I didn't see anybody on the schedule. So we're going to try and complete what we have for you today. One moment. All right. So everyone should be able to see my notes. So most of the regular people in the class, which is most of you who are listening right now, live, you've gotten this information, and we're going to continue to build upon this information. And as I always tell you, the human mouth has 7 categories or 7 areas of pronunciation. In order to pronounce any word, in fact, in order to pronounce any sound, human sound, you have to employ one or more of these categories. Number 1 is vowels, open-mouthed sounds. Number 2, labials. Sounds that are pronounced with the lips are labials. Number 3, gutturals, sounds that are pronounced from the back of the throat, whether it be the front of the back of the throat or the deep recesses of the throat. From the front, you get letters like ha, ha. And from the back, you get letters like g of the gorilla sound, or the kha of khalifa, those sounds. Gutturals in the gutter or the back of the throat. Number 4, you have liquids. The letter L and the letter R are liquids because they can pour forth. Like L, you can hold that almost indefinitely. R, you can roll that sound almost indefinitely. So they're called liquids, and they can be interchanged. Number 5, you have whistling fricatives. Fricatives are those soft S and Z sounds. Like the West makes, see? US, we, so, you see? The sound by itself, without anybody pointing you to any particular dictionary, these sounds are giving you fitra-based meanings for these letters. And therefore, if you know how to add the letters up into a sentence, then you're getting words. From the Quran, this is how the Quran operates. It's a frequency-based revelation. So those are fricatives. The S, the Z, in English, the letter X. If it ends with that little whistle, it's a fricative. It's creating friction in the front of the mouth. Number 6, you have dentals. These are the letters that you need your tongue to touch your teeth in order to pronounce, such as the letter D. The tongue has to go up and touch the back of the top two front teeth to say D and to say T and to give the DH sound, thalic, thalic. Those are dentals and they have meanings. That letter T is a very easy sound for the mouth to pronounce because it's simply the crossing or the crosswalk, if you will, between the tongue and the back of the top two front teeth. All you got to do is touch it. See, touch, T, teeth, touch, dental. The D sound is created by exactly the same touching of the top of the two front teeth, the back of the two top front teeth to say D. But the only difference between T and D is that before you can pronounce D, you're going to feel a slight hesitation. Do it right now while you're listening. You're going to feel a slight hesitation. So what does that mean? It means that the fitra, this is a fitra phenomenon I'm introducing to you. It has nothing to do with what men invented. It has to do with the fact that men cannot escape the fitra. As Allah says, humans cannot escape his. Allah says, let there be no alterations in Allah's fitrah, in the creation of Allah, the khalqillah. Let there be no tabdili. See, let there be no alterations, no misplacement of anything that Allah has created in the fitrah. You can try and do it, and it might even look like you're being successful at taking that little boy, turning him into a little girl, taking that little girl, turning him into me. You think you're doing the alterations, but you're not. And all it takes is just a couple of days of common sense thinking and the whipping of some asses that refuse to comply. Excuse me. To bring that whole process back to its fitra foundation and default setting. Just like all it takes is a couple of days. You saw it at the beginning of the lockdown. People weren't driving, so the exhaust wasn't going up in the air. And in places like China and all over India that had polluted skies that people couldn't see the real blue sky for decades in those places. But just about a week or so of the lockdown with no cars on the road, those people saw blue skies for the first time, especially if they were young. What is that? That's the sky, son. Is it always that? Is it supposed to be that color? Is it supposed to be that beautiful? I thought it was just cloudy all of the time, every day. No, that's man's world. That facade I was telling you about earlier that Satan likes to create. So a dental sound, when placed on the beginning of a word especially, is going to also infer a slight hesitation. So I always use the example of the door. See, the door. There's a hesitation. You have to either pull it, or you have to push it. See, there's a slight hesitation. Doors used to be curtains that would fall down, but you have to go up there and unravel it and pull it down. And when it's time to pull it back up, there's a hesitation. You have to wrap until it, like blinds, right? So whatever you think of that has D as a first letter, if you think about it hard enough, you're going to find that there is some hesitation. The last statement in the Surah of Al-Fatiha is Waladallin. See, Ad-Dallin, Dalla, Dod, the D sound. And what does that mean? It means to become lost, like nobody's business, like you don't know, you don't have a GPS, you don't have a map, you don't have nothing. You are just way off course. Now, you tell me if you've ever been lost, and all of us have been lost at some point or another, doesn't that create some hesitation? You're on the road and you're like, whoa, my GPS failed. I lost the signal. Let's see. You stop at the light sometimes and say, I don't know where to go from here. You hesitate, don't you? You don't keep driving like you know where you're going when you're not lost, when you know where you're going. No, when you're lost, you say, whoa, you might stop and make a phone call. Stop and ask somebody, excuse me, Mr. Ossifer, I'm lost. Yes, I said Ossifer. Make sure some of you who might not have understood officer understood what I was saying. I'm just playing. Humor keeps us human, as long as we're not offensive. So whatever word that you can think of that begins with that D sound, if you think about it long enough, you're going to see that implicit in that D word is some level of hesitation. Even in the word dean. And hesitation is not necessarily a bad thing. Hesitation is what taqwa is made of. Think before you act. Think, for thinking aids the thinker. That's from the Quran. Think. In the Quran, it's called a dhikr with the DH. The dhal. Dhal is also a dental. So in the word dhikr is the idea of hesitation. What are you hesitating to do? All things haram. All things that are not approved by Allah. See? You might say, well, that's Arabic. Give it to me in English. I just did. I gave you the word think, TH. TH is also a guttural. DH is a guttural. TH is not a guttural, pardon me, a dental. DH is a dental. TH is a dental. T is a dental. D is a dental. But when you're dealing with strictly D words, you're going to run right into the idea of hesitation. All right. Anyway, you can play with that on your own. Look through the dictionary at D words and see if what the instructor is saying is proven true. And if not, shoot me an email. Now, let's talk about some of these consonantally connected words to the word qadr. And again, you can find what I'm reading here in the book called The Night of Cosmic Power. And that's easy. You can go to my website and I'll give you the address for that before we conclude. Inshallah, will you? You will remind me. Here we go. These are consonantally connected words. This is just a for instance. This is not the lesson on qadr, but listen carefully. It follows the same fitra-based consonantal connection program. So we have the word khalifa, which I mentioned a little earlier, and it has three essential consonants out of the Arabic language. They are kha, lam, the letter L, fa, the letter F. This AH is a suffix. It's not an original part of the word as a root word. It's khalafa. Kha, li, fa. Fa, li, fa. Now the KH is a guttural, as we mentioned earlier in that section, number 3, guttural. And any other letter that is a guttural can be interchanged with the other guttural, as long as it's in that particular category out of those 7 categories of pronunciation. I think you're understanding what I'm saying. So the K sound is also a guttural. So K and kha, kaf in Arabic, K in English can be interchanged with the kha sound in Arabic. So we'll drop that down, let that be a K. Then you have the L sound, which interchanges with only one other liquid letter, and that's the R sound. We mentioned that earlier, because both of them need for your tongue to touch the top palate in your mouth. So because they're both touching the top palate, they're doing something a bit different than each other, but they're touching the top palate that makes them interchangeable. So the L goes up there and it kind of sticks to the palate. The R goes up there and it kind of trills electrically off of the top palate. R, L magnetizes, Ar is electricity. So electromagnetism is built into those two letters. So you have the K interchanging with the Fa, the R interchanging with the Lam, and then you have the F, which is a labial. We mentioned that earlier, labial number 2, lip sounds. And the B is a lip sound. Both of your lips, top and bottom, have to come together to say B, B, B. And your bottom lip has to go up to touch the bottom of your 2 top front teeth to say F. See, F. So because it has the lips involved, it's called a labial. Some people would say a bilabial because it has the teeth involved also. But just to not confuse you, we put it in the category of labial. So the B is a labial, the F is a labial. So that means that whatever words you come up with that have the guttural, liquid, labial connections in their consonants, they're going to have related, not exact meanings, but they're going to have related meanings. They're going to have a particular theme that runs through all of the words. So the ka, ra, ba, or the KRB sound gives us the English word because it doesn't matter the language, consonantal connections. It crosses all languages because it's dealing with human pronunciation. So wherever you have a human pronouncing something, you're going to have these relationships in meanings of words. So that gives us the English word crib. You're looking at C, but it's pronounced K, isn't it? Crib, crib. Okay. So that means there should be something similar between what the Khalifa is and what a crib is. And you know what a crib does. It's a holding pen for infants. What did Allah say to the angels when he was in the process of creating a Khalifa, as the Quran tells us? He was in the it wasn't fully formed yet. He wasn't on his P's and Q's like he was going to be, but he was in the process of making this Khalifa in the earth. See, a Khalifa fil ard. All right. They had concerns, to say the least. Are you going to make one who's going to create mischief and shed the blood? They asked Allah. And Allah said, nevertheless, when I have breathed into him, so this Khalifa wasn't even delivered yet, but when I have breathed into him of my ruh, my spirit, then all of you, I want you to hop to it, fall down in service to this one, in sajda, Allah said, fall down into sajda towards, not me. Allah said, no, fall into sajda towards that one. That should tell you right there that we've been given the wrong meaning for sajda. As soon as you say sajda, you think about putting your forehead on the ground to Allah. This Quran, which was penned by Allah, says that there's a sajda that you can perform towards Adam, or towards this Khalifa, this Adam in making, this premature Adam, this Adam who's still in the oven. See, he's fil ard, Khalifa fil ard. He's in the earth. What earth? Right there, baby. If you're a mother, that's a Khalifa being born. And their concern was mischief and bloodshed. And doesn't that baby create both? In fact, it has to create bloodshed just in order to be born, doesn't it? Yeah. And if you don't keep your eye on it almost every hour of the day, it's going to get into some mischief, especially as it begins to get older, take on legs and move its own arms and all of that. Yeah. Mischief. So the Quran is discussing so many multiple topics. This is not the only thing it's talking about. This is one of dozens of things that narrative is saying to us, because the Khalifa is also explaining the birth of the human intellect. That was in Imam Muhammad's findings, that the Khalifa represents the human intellect. So Instructor Bilal is coming behind him to give you further explanation on what I believe he was referring to. I believe that when the intellect is born, there's also mischief and bloodshed. And all you have to do is look at weird science in the world right now to know that when people's intellectual possibilities begin to open up and be born into the world, along with it comes mischief and bloodshed. I mean, literal bloodshed around the world. When they discovered the atom, they rushed to invent an atom bomb. Was that the intended purpose behind why Allah created atoms? Of course not. But look at the mischief involved in the human wayward and darling mind that comes to surface in some people, not all people, some people. Some people can't handle power because they don't have the Laylatul Qadr power. They have the false, phony, fictitious power. And they bring all of us into Layl, the night of darkness, ignorance, and oppression. That's the night of power that this world seeks. The night of power that Allah gives us is the cosmic night, the Laylat, the feminized night, where things are born, possibilities are born out of it, not destroyed by it. So crib is the place where the newborn is put. And their concern was about mischief and bloodshed. And if you let blood stay outside of the body for any measure of time, you understand? It becomes corrupt. It becomes putrid. The blood, it begins to coagulate, it begins to stiffen, it begins to darken, it stops the flow, it stops flowing. See, it becomes unlike what it was intended to be. And this was a concern on the part of the angels, quote unquote, in the Quran. And that's the concern for every newborn life. What environment are we going to raise this child in? Depending on the environment is going to determine whether that child becomes a righteous soul in this world, working for the good, or whether it becomes corrupt, working for the gangsters and the pranksters of this world. So you see the ka, ra, pa sound, P being a labial, interchanging with the B, interchanging with the F. So a Khalifa can be a corrupt entity, but it doesn't have to be. Again, it depends on the environment. What did our prophet say in a very well-known hadith that I accept and love? He said, every tifl is born alal fitra. Tifl is a newborn baby. Is born upon al fitra, the natural patterns established by Allah in nature. And he said, and it is the environment beginning with its parents that make it something corrupt, if I were to paraphrase. Because the way this hadith describes the corruption is that it's not, it's not able to maintain its integrity, its wholeness, its composite picture. And that's the average one of us as human beings. We're born into the fitrah. We're born upon this natural pattern of the senses becoming awakened to five sense reality and taking in all of this mental stimuli that's helping us to develop our intellect, the baby intellect that begins to get into mischief. It has to learn what to touch, what not to touch, where to go, where not to go, what kinds of things to say. Oh, Johnny, you don't say that to your auntie. Hey, Johnny didn't know. He gotta learn these things. The moral capacity has to be unfolded in the intellect. For the intellect to not grow into a corruption as it gets older and it begins to know that that's the wrong thing and then still choose the wrong, then it has become corrupt. For it to innocently choose bad behavior or something that it shouldn't have said or whatever, that's a learning curve that the baby has to process itself through. You see the word curve, consonantally connected. Instructor rarely misses. I believe I'm right. Yeah, I am. I'm correct. The K sounding curve, the R interchanging with the L, the V as a labial interchanging with the F and the P and the B. So curve, put that in your homework notebook and do some research on how curve is related to Khalifa, is related to crib, is related to corrupt, is related to even calf. Because the calf is the baby cow, isn't it? All right. You know, just from driving, you don't want to live on the curved part of the road. That's temporary. You go around the curve. If you keep going around the curve, you'll be walking in circles. You understand? So these things are also representative of temporary stages in your development. This is so beautiful. And unfortunately, we have to wind it up. I don't hear anybody hollering in the background. Do any of you? Anybody hollering for Instructor Bilal to stop? Or should I go another couple of minutes?
Please, please
Okay.
go.
I
go.
need your permission. All right.
Yes, sir. Go.
And we're
Right
gonna
ahead.
listen. There'll still be the conclusion of this tomorrow. So I'll get you that. In fact, I think you can come in on this same link. Okay, so just be in place by 10 o'clock or maybe 5 minutes too. And I thank Masjidullah Inc. in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for affording us this opportunity to speak to each other on these weekend mornings. This is beautiful. All right. So we're talking about the night of cosmic power. And I told you that there's Layl. And Layl by itself means night, like your overnight night. That night, that's Layl. You'll see that Layl when reading about Ramadan in Surah 2, I think it's Ayat 187, where Allah is describing the amount of time that you're supposed to do Siyam, which they translate as fast. Allah says from that peak of day, when you can distinguish the night from the day, that light, that streak of light, we call it Fajr, until Layl, until night appears. It didn't say until Maghrib appears. Now, don't get mad at me. I didn't reveal it. Allah said to end your fast when the night appears, Layl. Allah knows how to say Maghrib. That word is in the Quran, but not over there. So technically speaking, and see, here's where you draw the difference between people who follow Allah's word, even if the world's word says something different or has established something different. You know the problem? This is another aside. The problem that Muslims have in the world today with all of this new, fresh information, because Allah has pressed the refresh button on the entire world. I don't know if you've been paying attention. Not just on our deen, the entire world has had the refresh button pressed by Allah, the source creator. As Imam Muhammad said, he said, I know what they say about the New World Order. He said, but what they don't know is that Allah is going to bring about his New World Order using their hands. So let their hands press the reset. Oh, the great reset. So says the World Economic Forum. The man who sounds like Adolf Hitler is telling you how the world is going to be redesigned by him and his companies and the Fortune 500 and all of these rich people. And they're going to rule your world and you will be their servants. And IT and IA and AI and all of these alphabets will be ruling your life for the rest of your life, if you still have a life, because we're going to find out that we really don't need you once we put all of these robots in place, and they don't need the food, they don't need water, they don't need to rest, they don't need, and we can make them now so that they are soft to the touch like your flesh, and you can actually even have intercourse with these dolls, these AI dolls that we're creating. And we just need enough time. We need to just entertain you long enough with, one entertainer punching the other one, slapping the other one in the face on the same night that we're having our major meeting over here at the World Economic Forum. We're broadcasting it for everyone to see, but the Negroes and the He-Gros and the She-Gros, they're so busy watching the Oscars and the Academy Awards on that same night that they won't even think to kind of push the button over to the other side of the dial where we are ruling the world. And we're doing it in the public because God says in the Quran that we have to publicize what we're doing in order for it to be valid and legitimate with God in the end. So we can say, we told them we would, they chose this voluntarily. They chose their own destruction voluntarily. Iblis says in the Quran, hey, all I did was, I just sent them an invitation. They follow. And that's true. Nobody has to do evil. Evil is always by invitation. Allah says Satan has no power over you, except to call you and you respond. We're talking about qadr, how to get your qadr back. So look at these consonantal connections. Layl is night, as in day and night. The opposite of layl is nahar, day, nahar, N-A-H-A-R. The opposite of laylat, ooh, buddy, is Yawm. You Muslims who read the Quran, you better know this. It's in Al-Fatiha. Maliki Yawmiddin. Owner of the day. You think that's a small d there? No. You don't think there's going to be a whole lot of hesitation on that day that begins with the English letter D? Oh, people going to be pulling up their suspenders. I didn't do it. I wasn't even there, Allah. Oh, give me another time, another chance. You know, like that song says, give me just a little more time. Too late. The day is here. You understand? So Yawm, this is so wonderful. Yawm is not day like sunlight appears in the morning kind of day. Yawm is day like cosmic day. That's why we call this the night of cosmic power. You see, there's a word eon, and it means not a day, not a month, not a year. An eon can be billions of years. This is why Imam Muhammad said that it's not speaking to one night. You get it now? He said this night of power could possibly be speaking to the beginnings of creation itself. Wouldn't that have been eons, my friends? I wish some of these weak-minded imams and leaders would just be humble enough to say, this little guy here has got something that we need that could catapult us to the top levels of leadership in the Muslim world if we would just follow his lead. You don't have to mention me, just follow the lead. Follow my bouncing ball. That's all I'm asking you, because it's going to go in the hole. It's going to be a hole in one in a minute. And the one will be Tawheed. And you'll see how all of this fits together. But you got to be humble to do that. Many of you are, and many of you are starting to wake up and realize that there's something real here as an inheritance from Imam Muhammad's language and lexicon. And from mine. Yeah, a lot of this are my findings. And now you're coming into your findings. I'm listening to you. You're coming into your own consonantal connections and Nunetics method and way of teaching and spreading this and sharing this, and your families are beginning to benefit. And now people outside of the African-American experience are joining hands with us and learning and bringing their children to the table now. Pakistan and Egypt and Saudi and UK and Bangladesh, still asking for a Nunetics Institute in Bangladesh. Sierra Leone, they were one of the first ones to jump on board. Pakistan, group of young Pakistani brothers wrote me, emailed me, Instructor Bilal, can you do a class just for us? There's about 30 of us out here in Pakistan. Just tell us what you want to charge. We don't care. We want that Nunetics. And they did that after asking me a series of about 10 to 15 questions about Nunetics, because they couldn't believe this was real when they first heard it. And they asked me question after question, and I emailed them answer after answer. And that's when they said that this is real. We're not going to let this go. And the only reason I didn't jump on the opportunity, because I could have done that and not have to see you anymore. But the reason I didn't do that is that I'm obligated to you.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, I'm obligated to you. And all of that, I'm obligated to the world also, but that's going to come after this because I need you to help me establish that. I'm not going to be one of those people who burn out all of the power source before it can really light up the rest of the world. I can't be burning the candle at both ends and just be one person trying to teach everybody that comes across the line. I'll burn out. I need you to be prepared to teach. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing with you. And by you, I don't mean just the African American. I'm talking about anybody who wakes up to Nunetics, hears the sound of my voice, and sees these lessons coming across their YouTube screen or Rumble screen. We'll be on Rumble soon. That's who I'm talking to all of you, because this has nothing to do with an ethnic group now. It has nothing. You had your ethnic group chance back when Marcus Garvey was teaching. I'm talking to you so-called Black folks now. You had your ethnic chance to shine when Marcus Garvey, Noble Drew Ali, Frederick Doug, when all those people were here, Harriet Tubman, all of those people, Sojourner Truth, Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad. That's when your ethnic chance was here. And it was a lineup of those people. And we failed almost each and every one of them, including Imam W.D. Muhammad. We failed him. Make no mistake about it. And this is your chance to repent to Allah, not to Imam Muhammad, not to Marcus Garvey, not to Malcolm X. This is your chance to repent to Allah. And repent just means repent. Pent means five. That means just it's your chance to get your five senses back, because obviously you've been working without them. That's why we're going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. We have to get those five senses reacclimated to reality and say we have something now that can put us on top of the academic world. And let me just say this to you as a warning. The Quran says that it comes with good news and warning. What is the warning? What they are planning for your baby's brains in these so-called learning institutions that they call schools. The curriculum that they are unpacking as we speak, related to this gender modification, related to just screwing up your child's human identity until it becomes such mush that you will begin crying for artificial intelligence to rule this world because of your babies are on fentanyl and kentanol, dentanol. You're sleeping in tents all over San Francisco, Chicago gangland. There's a killing over the weekends. There's 15 murders in one weekend in Chicago, parts of Chicago. You want it, listen, when that keeps increasing, which they're fueling that fire. They want it to rage. They're giving the homeless free tents in San Francisco. Just find a tent that's not occupied and put your stuff in there. Come on down here and get a hit of this drug. They want the drugs to flourish in our communities. And yeah, if you'll notice it has nothing to do with you just being some Black community anymore. It's where whoever will indulge, because they don't need humans anymore. That's what you have to understand about what's happening right now. They're attempting to take over the world with artificial intelligence. I told you 2 years ago what COVID stands for as an acronym: Certificate of Vaccination Identification 19 AI, artificial intelligence. That's what this whole plan is. And you're looking at the snapshot, not understanding that their plan is a rolling video. You came in at a particular scene in the movie and that caught your eye and you thought it couldn't get any worse than that. But that's just a snapshot. As for advertising the movie, and you focus on the snapshot. Wow. And you don't realize that they have an end game for all of this that they haven't told you about that could take another 5 years to unpack. Because they do things. I'm talking about the conspirators of this world, the social manipulators of this world. They have a plan that they unpack incrementally. It's like the frog in the frying pan. It won't jump out of the pan if you put the fire on very low. And as the pan begins to heat up, the frog doesn't feel any sudden change in its temperature. So it stays there. You don't have to put a top on the pan. It'll stay there. And its little frog feet will eventually begin sticking to the pan. So by the time it does feel the heat, it will have nothing left to jump with. That's where this world is headed. And the number one avenue that they are employing to make that happen is your child's educational environment. So you keep thinking that you can leave your children in I'm telling you, you can leave them there if you want to, but you better have Nunetics as a supplement, or you're going to find your children losing their little minds in just a few years from now. And that's not a threat. That's a promise. They will be losing their human soul. Who told you that? Imam W.D. Muhammad. He said, we're about to come into a period of time that he called the great elimination of the human soul. So while we're trying to come into illumination, they're trying to bring you into elimination. We want the great illumination of the soul. They want the great elimination of the soul. And an elimination is also a bowel movement. So you're going to be seeing a lot of shizna. That's what you're seeing now. Literally. In San Francisco, you can hardly walk without stepping into some homeless person's dung that they just dropped it somewhere. You know, if you live there, you know what I'm talking about. Right there on the sidewalk. Dare you to say something. Shooting up you're just shooting up in the street with your little children walking by. Dare you to say something. Because this is the great allowance. See? While we're trying to present the great picture of Allah, they're trying to present the great picture of allow. Just allow it. Anything goes. Everything goes. Because we gotta tear this world down so we can build our new world of artificial intelligence. Nothing wrong with the technology per se. It's the way these demons are choosing to use it and regulate it over and above your human senses. You want to hold on to those senses? Keep listening to what we're telling you. You're on the right channel. You're on the right frequency. You want to get lost in this foolishness, in their illusion? Stop listening to this channel. Go back to where you came from, and good luck. So, Qadr, go back to yawn for a moment. The E is interchangeable at the beginning of a word with the Y. That's why you can say Yeshua. You can say Jesus. You can say Iones. All of these words mean Jesus in different languages because Y and E are interchangeable. Then you have that M, as you know, which interchanges with the N. So you have Yom and you have Eon. They're saying the same thing. So Yawmiddin is not a day like a 24-hour day. Yawmiddin could take, as Imam Muhammad said, you're living in it right now. The day of judgment. Been here. He said, actually, you're living in a day in the judgment. He said, I'm not talking about the final conclusion, you know, when Allah rolls it up like a scroll and all that you read about. He said, I'm talking about these periods that come about every so often throughout human history. And it's been happening for thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of years. Every now and then when society gets so far off the beaten track of human development and Allah has to bring it back to its development, that's why he sends prophets. But the final prophet came 1,500 years ago. So what do you think you're living in now? You waiting on another prophet? You waiting on the Mahdi? I get it. And the others of you are waiting on Jesus to return. I get it. Good luck. Ain't gonna happen. The only return is the return of enlightenment through your diligent study of what Allah has already gifted you with in scripture. So Jews, go back to your Torah. Good luck. Christians, go back to your your New Testament, Old Testament. Good luck. Muslims, if you left the Quran, bad luck. And if for some reason you did, this is your perfect opportunity to get back to it, because you may be getting to it for the first time, even though you've been with it for years. With this new level of understanding, you may be visiting the real Quran for the first time. Imam Muhammad called it the promised reading, meaning it wasn't here yet. The proper understanding of the Quran was not here yet. Not even in his lifetime. Why would he call it a promise if it was here when he was here? It was here with him. He understood that it had a whole nother level of meaning or meanings. But he also knew that the way it was presented by the average translator and the average people who were giving you these meanings for Quranic words that were incorrect, he knew that that had to fade out first. That had to fade to black first before the true understanding. And what is the true understanding? Are you bringing the true understanding? No, it ain't me. Oh, I think Dr. Haney. No, it ain't Dr. Haney. Oh, it must be the new Yusuf Ali translation by Saudi Mecca. No, it ain't Saudi. No, that is not the new. No. The new introduction to the true message of the Quran is outside your window. It's in parts of your body. It's understanding the fitrah as Allah created it. Most of the Quran is pointing you to Allah's fitrah, meaning the natural patterns related to the forms and the functions that Allah created in nature. That has to become your classroom. Then you will begin to come into the first level of illumination. And it's that illumination, if you concentrate enough on Allah's creation and begin to absorb those qualities from these beautiful signatures that Allah has signed off on down here. You do that enough, that illumined morality in you, that illumined curiosity in you, that illumined, you get it? All of those things that begin to wake up in you are going to naturally lead you to the door of enlightenment, because it's going to spark the pineal to come awake.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. And not in any, crazy kind of guru hippie kind of Hare Krishna, not in that way. Follow that if you want to. I didn't have to follow that to come into this enlightenment. I'm just at the door of it myself. But I'm telling you, I know several of you I've had conversations with, you got your big toe in that door. I know it when I hear it. And the first thing I look for is this a moral person? See, and when I see that they operating as moral thinkers, I encourage it. So eon, long period of time. And you see the word yaum, just compare it with the English word yawn. Remember, M and N are interchangeable. When do you yawn? You yawn at the first manifestation of new light into the world, especially as it comes through your window. Where's the window in you? These five senses. They look out into the world and they take in light from out there. That's what your five senses do. So when new light begins to dawn on your five basic senses, that's also yaum. Yaum, day. It's wonderful when you understand it. So we're going to pick up here tomorrow. I'm not going to get into Qadr. You can already see how it's consonantally connected to glitter, and glitter represents light, not darkness, because it's not talking about a physical night, as we mentioned earlier. So thank you all for being with me, for listening this intently. And
Instructor, remember again?
yes.
The website.
Okay, yeah, let me put that on the board. Thank you very much. It's so wonderful to have help. All right, so www. Unetics Institute. You have to write fast because a person's coming in behind me, I believe. All right. That's my website. I should say that's our website for the University Online Learning course, which you can join. It's every Sunday at 7 p.m. If you want to know about that course, go straight to that website and it will give you the particulars. And if you're feeling a little bit conversational, and if you need to, you call me. If you need to. Don't call me just to chit chat. I don't have time for that. Call me if you have a serious question or text me and see if I'm available to call. Don't stop. It's getting very busy right around. It is very busy for the instructor right now. So I don't have time just for, like Aretha Franklin said, I ain't got time to sit and chit chat and smile. That was Dr. Feelgood, in case you didn't recognize the lyrics. So again, thank all of you for being with me as I greet you. Remember, use that same link to get in tomorrow. I'll send a fresh one out anyway. All right. But I greet you in the greetings of peace that obligate each and every one of us to keep the peace and keep the peace, especially during this time of solemn contemplation, meditation, observation, and all of those other good things that serve the human intellect and the human soul. Salam alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Walaikum salam.
All right.
Alaikum salam.
Alaikum
right.
assalam.
Have a productive day.
Alaikum assalam.
And make sure if you're making that ritual salat, do it and then immediately go do something good for somebody other than you.
Alhamdulillah.
If you made a ghusl, you did something good for you. But as soon as you do that good thing for somebody else, go do something good for your mama or your neighbor, or put a phone call into somebody who you know is ill, can't come visit you, or you go visit them if you can. That's a part of the salat. Wa'ikamu salat, wa'ita'i zakat. It follows it. Most of the time salat is mentioned. It's followed immediately by zakat, doing something good that's going to help purify your soul. See you tomorrow.